In 2026, for the fourth consecutive year, the badminton season got underway with the Malaysia Open Super 1000. It is an event that draws in many fans, and this year was no different. However, on Tuesday, the 6th of January, the opening day of competition, there was a larger, undeniable buzz in the air inside the arena. And that was for one reason: the return of Lee Zii Jia.
Listen to the roar.
Lee Zii Jia is one of badminton's most popular players, especially in his home country of Malaysia. Yet his return was special not just because he was doing so at his home event in front of his home fans, but because of how difficult and uncertain his journey to get there had been. Following a nasty injury to his right ankle that forced him to retire from the 2024 World Tour Finals, despite playing some of his best badminton ever, Lee Zii Jia also suffered a setback at one of his best and favourite tournaments, struggled with depression and anxiety that almost caused him to quit, and then just as he got over that, he suffered another injury, this time to his back, an injury in which surgery was heavily recommended to him. But Lee Zii Jia didn't opt for the surgery, instead deciding to focus on rehabilitation, and he was using not just the 2026 Malaysia Open as a test of his level and fitness, but 3 more tournaments: the India Open, the Indonesia Masters, and the Thailand Masters. And that is where I come in, as following the Malaysia Open during my regular Beckman's breakdown, I gave my thoughts on Lee Zii Jia's return. Now, I could play you what I said, but for brevity, here are the bullet points. Although, if you are interested in what I said in its entirety, then I have put a link to the video in the description below. At the Malaysia Open, where Lee Zii Jia lost to India's Ayush Shetty in the opening round, I felt that Lee Zii Jia played the net well, even playing back to the net on numerous occasions. He showed a good level of patience in general, not too many rash shot choices, and I felt his attitude was fantastic. My criticisms weren't really criticisms. They were mainly explanations for his loss, and as such they may sound obvious. They were a lack of match sharpness, inconsistency at match pace, and that he was not used to tournament conditions, something I felt that was exacerbated a little by playing in Malaysia. The reason I didn't give too many criticisms was because it was only one match. To do so would be impossible. That is why, alongside giving my own thoughts, I also said that I'd be giving a more detailed breakdown of Lee Zii Jia's game following the Thailand Masters. Now, I am aware that whilst I just said giving a critique to a player after one match is impossible, I'm not oblivious to the fact that doing so after 4 tournaments, whilst better, still isn't perfect. In that Beckman's Breakdown episode, I did lay out 4 key areas that I would be looking at in Lee Zii Jia's matches. And again, for brevity, here are those 4 areas listed out in a nice, concise manner. What I will do now is go through them one by one and offer my thoughts. 1. Injury-free. This is something that I repeated over and over in my original video. I'm quite excited to do that video on Lee Zii Jia at the end of these 4 tournaments. Hopefully it's a positive one, and by positive I mean that he finished. I mentioned this countless times, but I really want to hammer it home that he finishes these 4 weeks injury-free and still enjoying his badminton and eager. I hoped that Lee Zii Jia could complete the 4 weeks of competition without any further injuries or flare-ups. I was mainly aiming this towards his back, as that was the main area for concern, given that he had forgone surgery to compete. And whilst there weren't any injury worries or concerns with his back, sadly Lee Zii Jia was unable to finish these tournaments injury-free. In the quarter-finals of the Thailand Masters against Awi Farhan, Lee Zii Jia suffered another different injury, this one to his left ankle. This injury did force him to retire after changing ends in the second game, and it almost forced me to consider whether or not I should do this video. If Lee Zii Jia was injured again, then a lot of the points I will be making in this video would be moot, as he'd have to start from 0 again. But after giving it some thought, I decided to go ahead with this video anyway, and I did so for two main reasons. First is that I've heard that the injury to his left ankle is minor. He withdrew predominantly for precaution. I messaged Malaysia's superfan Kar Yuan Chow as he was in Thailand, and he said Lee Zii Jia seems okay, and he even posted a video of Zii Jia walking in the hotel lobby after the match without any visible issues. I'd also add that whilst this new injury is unfortunate, the fact Lee Zii Jia didn't suffer any issues with his back is a huge positive. And the second reason, I still feel there's plenty to talk about. Now, following on from that, I am going to divert slightly from the four areas on my list. But don't worry, it will quickly come back around. I feel that, in hindsight, Lee Zii Jia played one tournament too many. I think 3 would have been the sweet spot. I am not saying that's because he got injured, but more from the way he was playing and how he had played in the previous weeks. I understand why Lee Zii Jia played all 4. He probably felt he wouldn't get too deep in the first 2 tournaments, and so wanted to play as much as possible to not just get his eye back into competition mode, but also test out his fitness. For me, Lee Zii Jia showed his best form of this comeback in Indonesia. There he won his first match in 10 months, defeating a former world bronze medalist HS Pranoy, and he also had a great chance to beat the player who reached the final, Panichapon Teratsukun. It was also in Indonesia where all the positive things I am going to say were at their peak. This might also be another reason as to why he then played Thailand. He was on an upward trajectory, and with Thailand being a Super 300, he probably felt he could do well. I also can't overlook the fact that Lee Zii Jia was probably trying to acquire as many ranking points as he could, as his ranking has currently slipped outside the top 50. And in a way, he did both those things, as in Thailand he got the furthest, reaching the quarterfinals. However, if I bring up my list again, told you I'd work back around to that quickly, then I feel if you compare Lee Zii Jia in Indonesia to Thailand, he was far stronger in all departments in Indonesia. Okay, next on the list, defense. As I said in my breakdown video, I wasn't going to look at Lee Zii Jia's defense in just straight black and white terms. I was going to be looking at Lee Zii Jia's ability to hold up under sustained pressure, his ability to survive longer when on the back foot, his shot choice to lessen pressure on defense, and whether or not he could change defense into attack. Watching Lee Zii Jia over the last month, I felt all these areas were improving with each match, culminating in a display that I saw in Indonesia. In fact, when watching both his matches in Indonesia, I can recall a few times being shocked and surprised by not just how much Lee Zii Jia got back, but how fast he recovered and was ready for the next shot. A few times I saw Lee Zii Jia diving for a smash only to leap up and then pounce onto the next shot. That is something I hadn't seen from Lee Zii Jia in years, and it actually knocked me back in my seat. Even in the second round versus Teratsukun, which he did eventually lose rather heavily in the third, for the first 2 games he showed much of the same. On top of this, his focus on what he was doing, so his shot choice, was also good in Indonesia. I could see a purpose to his game. When in defense, he wasn't just trying to get shots over. It was clear to me that he was trying to look for chances to counter. If in a bad position, he would do this by being ready quickly, and if in a good position, he would do this through controlling his defensive shots and moving his opponent. And this leads me nicely onto the next area on my list, attack. This area, like defense, is going to be more than just black and white. More than just hitting winners. I was keen to see how Lee Zii Jia built rallies, how patient he could remain, and how he would react when given an attacking chance after being on the back foot. In Malaysia, I noted how his patience was good. He just made a few too many errors. Despite this, I could kind of see what he was trying to achieve. In India, when he faced Rasmus Gemka, he showed more of this with a slightly reduced error rate. He also opened up a little more as the match progressed. I noticed that from around the midpoint of the second game that Lee Zii Jia started to play with a little more aggression, stepping onto the front court a fraction quicker, more shots with a clear purpose, and as such he started to control the majority of the rallies. In Indonesia, where you can't sit back and be reactive due to the drifty and fast conditions, Lee Zii Jia certainly didn't, which was something that, like his defense, really jumped out at me. I felt the conditions of the Astora Senayan might prove tricky for Lee Zii Jia, but just how he was focused on his defence and how to change it into attack, when he was on the attack, it was the same story. I felt this was especially the case in and around the net. If you recall, this was an area I praised Lee Zii Jia for in his first match in Malaysia. Even when Ayeshetti would play a spin net shot, Lee Zii Jia was willing to play back to the net. A skill that sounds simple but isn't, especially when you've been away for some time. In Indonesia, his net play was at its best. Against HS Pranoy in the first round, a smart and calculative player, Lee Zii Jia took on that area as it was clear Pranoy was trying to get the upper hand here. Lee Zii Jia was on the faster end, so if Pranoy could control the front court, it would make life very difficult for Lee Zii Jia. Lee Zii Jia, though, didn't let him do this. He closed it down in numerous ways. He would play back there, he stepped forward, and he would even kill a few. And then, as a bonus, he would also flick away at the right moments. In essence, he took the net away enough to limit the advantage Pranoy was trying to create. And then when he changed ends, he took a step forward, once again taking the net, which now made life very difficult for Pranoy, who simply couldn't control anything. Lee Zii Jia not only used the net to take away Pranoy's advantage, but he used it as a way to give himself the advantage. It was a great tactical display by Lee Zii Jia, the best I saw of him in this area across all 4 tournaments. Even in the second round, for the first game in 3 quarters, Lee Zii Jia was doing this again. I could tell he had a clear game plan. However, in Thailand, whilst I certainly still saw plenty of positives, I did feel Lee Zii Jia wasn't showing a fully focused game plan. Certainly not of the level I saw in Indonesia. This was especially noticeable in his second round when he beat Mithun Manjunath of India in 3 games. I watched that match and came away with the impression that Lee Zii Jia was trying to win by just being a better badminton player, not by beating him through tactics or smart play. He came across as a little flat to me, and I wrote in my notes after that in all honesty I felt it was a sloppy performance. Had that been his opening match in Malaysia or even in India, it would have been more understandable, but after what I saw in Indonesia, my expectations were a little higher. I also felt that had it been Pranoy again, that the result would have been reversed. Now, there could be reasons for this, with the main one being that even if you aren't playing lots and lots of matches, 4 weeks of travel and tournaments isn't easy on anyone, and maybe Lee Zii Jia had hit a bit of a wall. On top of this, the conditions were slower in Thailand, so maybe it was harder to implement a similar plan. This would also explain his performance in the quarterfinal, as whilst it was a bit better, the first game saw Lee Zii Jia stepping forward more, playing with good variation of height and sharpness from the front, and he also attacked with a little more purpose. He did struggle to maintain it. What hammered this home to me was that in the second game, I felt all Awi Farhan did was take half a step forward, yet Lee Zii Jia was slow to react to it. He did eventually and worked his way back in before the injury struck, but I think that was helped by Awi Farhan also looking a little mentally spent. Watching that match, I don't think either player was looking too sharp. The match was filled with plenty of unforced errors. I don't think either player was playing with the same level they had shown the week before. It's a shame we didn't get to see a third game, but based on the first 2 games, I think my conclusions would have likely been the same. Now, despite saying all of this, when it comes to looking at the final area on my list, attitude, Lee Zii Jia gets a huge thumbs up from me. Lee Zii Jia is a player that does often come under fire and scrutiny. He is a player who gets a lot of love, but also quite a bit of hate. And whilst I don't profess to know all the reasons why, one is likely because he doesn't always outwardly show that desire and fire to win, and to some extent, I do get that. If you watch the first 2 games of his second round in Thailand, you could certainly interpret that way. But for me, and I've said this before, I think this is just Lee Zii Jia's personality. It's his way of expressing himself. And in all honesty, I'm not going to go any deeper than that. I'm not a psychologist. But for me, just as he showed one side in the opening 2 games in that second round match in Thailand, in the second half, he showed something different. I also cannot overlook that whilst I didn't think his badminton was the best in Thailand, he did manage to come back in both his first and second rounds. He might have been looking a little flat in my opinion, but he still hung in there and found a way to win. And that does deserve some credit. And all in all, throughout these 4 weeks on tour, Lee Zii Jia's attitude has been most certainly positive, fist pumping for the vast majority of his matches, showing a strong desire to push forward and win, and he also seems positive for the future. I think all in all, this comeback by Lee Zii Jia has been a positive one. Of course, we will have to wait and see the extent of his new injury to his left ankle. I generally hope it isn't anything serious, so he can continue to build on what he has done in these past 4 weeks. Also, must be noted that the injury that caused the most concern, his back, showed no signs of weakness. There were no flare-ups or issues that arise throughout this tour. As you can probably tell, in all 4 of those areas on my list, I felt that Lee Zii Jia showed progression. Only in Thailand did I feel that it fell off, and that was only by a little. And let's be honest, that probably should have been expected. Now, as for the future, I quite like what former top Malaysian men's singles player Datuk Rashid Sidek said recently. There will be more tournaments ahead. I don't think this is the end for him. It's more like a warm-up before he slowly picks himself up. As Jill Clark wrote in her social media post about Lee Zii Jia before he returned in Malaysia, the fiercest battle Lee Zii Jia will have to face will be the psychological one. The doubts over whether he can ever get back to his best will be hard to get over, but based on what I saw, Lee Zii Jia does seem ready for that battle, as he showed a great positive attitude throughout. I just hope he can continue that forward into the rest of 2026. If he can, and also improve on his physical fitness, as I don't think Lee Zii Jia is anywhere near full fitness, then he can certainly find his way back. There are many more battles that lie ahead though, not just the new injury, but also this first matches against the true elite of the world, the players he will have to be able to beat if he wishes to compete for badminton's biggest prizes again. But that is a little further down the road. So for now, I'm going to finish this video with a nice little quote from one of Lee Zii Jia's former coaches, Wong Tat Meng, who said something recently that I think will resonate with a lot of Lee Zii Jia fans. Obviously, he is not yet at his best compared to his performance when I was coaching him, but he is trying his best to improve. It's a long process, but nothing would make me happier than seeing him back at his best. I wish you nothing but the best of luck, Lee Zii Jia, in your continued journey back to the top. I'm sure, in fact, I know that you have plenty of support. If you are one of those supporters, one of those many, then get in the comments below and show him your support. And also, while you're at it, give me your comments on this video. Until next time, everyone, I'll see you soon.